Thank you so much to Ben and Suzanne for your input today. Really, really valuable input and honest input. I also want to especially thank Suzanne for giving up part of her bank holiday today, and even more admirable to look so fresh and awake at this time of the day. That's impressive. So let's jump straight in. We have a few questions from the audience, so let's jump straight in. One of the questions is around what Ben said about the TMC identity crisis, and I'm not sure we call it identity crisis. Maybe it's more a transformational crisis, and TMCs always need to transform. But do you think that TMCs actually can invest in developing their own tools while they're struggling with the operational cost, with new sales and with profitability? You know, it's sort of a catch-22. If you haven't got any money, how do you invest? And how do you get any money if you don't invest?
You want to start, Suzanne, or should I?
Oh, go ahead, Ben. You start, I'll follow.
Yeah, of course, you have to be a bit provocative with a statement to get the attention. That's why I call it the crisis. But to me, as you said, it's what I said, the reverse. Before, TMCs were traditionally a lot of offline business, and now the online is, as I said, the 2/3 of the face to the customer. And I feel a lot of TMCs still have the mindset of offline first and account management, reporting. If they just look at over a day, how much time do they spend on the online experience compared to all the other stuff? You might realize you're not spending 2/3 of your time where your interaction is. So to the point, chicken and egg. Yes, good point. I just think sometimes you need to do these investments now to have an opportunity for later. So I'm not saying everybody should increase the debt now, but maybe that's the only way why it's quite easy to get external money from the financial market with low interest rates. So no perfect answer, but an encouragement to maybe risk a little debt.
Thank you. And Suzanne, just as a follow-up, I mean, do you think that the corporations are willing to pay for additional services provided by the TMCs?
Well, my response would have been maybe slightly different. I think for TMCs that are cash strapped at the moment, there is always debt. Some companies might be willing for a bespoke kind of solution where they're looking for something that's very unique. The white glove kind of tech approach certainly isn't one that has been tried very often. It's been create tech at scale. So a white glove approach could be an interesting gap in the market that someone could try out. My other response would be that partnerships matter. And while there might be two predominant OBTs, there are lots of smaller players, and maybe there's some ways for TMCs to slightly look different within the market, within their unique region where they serve, by looking at local players in a way that maybe they have been looking too broadly. So I think the globals always need to have a global OBT, a global expense provider, all of those. But partnerships on a regional basis, there could be some interesting plays there for some regional, local, and the bespoke kind of regional approach, where sometimes the peanut butter, as we say in the US, the peanut butter spread approach doesn't always work for the kind of local needs that a company might have.
We can't count the US on peanut butter because you put jelly on it as well, so it's all ruined. But I think that's interesting. I may challenge you on the two dominant TMCs. I think certainly a third or fourth would object and say. But one of the things that's been interesting the last few weeks, especially, is how there's been a lot of action in TMCs being sold and taken over by others. Now, to some extent, that's because of the crisis, that those who have money, it's a very good time to buy. Although the rumors are that the prices have been paid have been quite a lot of money. One of the new players, and it's also a question from the audience, one of the new players that's come into Europe, and I shouldn't really mention other TMCs than Lufthansa City Center, but there's a company called Trip Actions, and they've now bought some very major sort of what I call legacy TMCs, and they're coming in with a new model. Do you think, I mean, and this is really for Ben, do you think that TMCs should innovate and renew themselves towards the sort of low-cost model that Trip Actions are doing? And at the same time, are you considering moving your provider or moving more stuff in-house instead of using a TMC?
Yeah, a difficult question. I'm watching this quite closely, and what I have seen from Trip Actions that they have not gained access to large global companies because they were struggling with global presence and matching, as I said, the same good offline experience as they had online. So they were very good online, but they were struggling with offline. And I think the only solution for them to grow in the speed they wanted and get global scale was buying a very good offline transaction company. Yeah, so for them, speed to market was, I think, the criteria. I think all will be surprised where the pricing will go for customers of Trip Actions currently, because if you add Reed and Mackay pricing, white glove, as Suzanne was saying, to this, and then take like, okay, you've got now 1/3 very expensive fees and the other 2/3 very cheap, it's still a major price jump. So I think the expectation on this will remain like a cheap TMC is not valid.
It's interesting you say, because it's sort of history repeating itself. I remember when Agencia started out and they were, mainly online, and they had to buy themselves into offline operations in order to gain some of the global accounts. And of course, now they've been sold as well to GBT. So there's a bit of history there. I want to try and change a little bit tack. I also wanted to congratulate Suzanne. You're fairly new in the role, and it's a major role. And of course, one of your major competitors in terms of ACT has disappeared during this crisis. So GBTA has an even more important role as a representative for the business travel community. Are you happy, and I'm not asking specifically on GBTA, but are you happy with the lobbying? Because it's one of my pets, I won't say pet hates, but pet cases. Does our industry come out strong enough in presenting our case to governments and to the people that make decisions? And you can hear that my question may be laden a little bit with my own opinion, but how can we get our message across worldwide of the importance of travel, and in your case, business travel specifically?
Yeah, in my first 3 months here, I've spent a lot of time with media who has insisted that business travel is dead, that nobody will ever get on a plane again for business travel in the future because we all love these kinds of environments. So first of all, we have to do a better job as an industry across every regional and local government. So right now, GBTA's efforts are really in Washington, in Brussels, in Ottawa, and increasingly in London, now that there's a separate government from the EU as well. And we spend money every month for some very great lobbying efforts within at least Brussels and Washington at the moment. So we need to up that game to understand how cross-border travel, but also some synergies within the way that business travel is understood, and the research and the metrics that we bring forward about how business travel drives economies, creates jobs, and actually supports low leisure prices because when business travelers travel, those same suppliers can afford to drop the price for their tourist travelers. So we have to be loud and proud about what we do to support the industry. And I come into this with having had a lot of experience at ACT as well. I was the chief volunteer for a couple of years as president of the ACT board. So I bring that kind of global experience from ACT from a volunteer perspective. And we need to both mobilize our volunteers as well as get the professional help that we need within those policymaking groups. We've been lobbying Washington and the UK to make sure that we've got the G7 talking points so that they know that cross-border travel needs to be discussed at this G7 meeting that happens very soon.
Yeah, I mean,
that's the purpose of a trade group.
Absolutely. And I mean, we can only support these efforts. And we're also talking tomorrow to WTTC, who's had a high profile in this, in highlighting the importance of travel to the leaders of the world. I think other industries are still more united and does it better than we have, but we just have to continue to push that effort through. Just finally, I wanted to touch a little bit about, both Ben and Suzanne mentioned about new things that TMCs can take on. And we heard this morning from one of the speakers that said, Zoom is now our major competitor. And I wonder if we could make Zoom more an opportunity. Should TMCs maybe be advising on alternatives to travel? And also, it's not just you talked about having the travel or the TMC following the traveler. Well, they need to follow them the whole way through. So are there other things that TMCs now should look at to provide getting together, maybe not via travel, and maybe hopefully generating an income source there? Let's start with Suzanne this time.
So I think there is a great deal of need for ROI of collaboration work, whether it's initial research, what is an outcome of a face-to-face meeting, an in-person meeting, because we are face-to-face here, but an in real life meeting, IRL is what I call it, versus one that is intermediated with some kind of technology. I think most meetings we go forward with will be hybrid in some way. There will be some people in a room. There will be some people who are not. Some will have traveled to get there. And I think there's a very complex equation that TMCs, as Ben said, need to know their customers, need to determine what are the outcomes that company culture expects, and determine what goes into that funnel to create a really strong ROI of collaboration, secret sauce, if you will, for determining who travels and who doesn't.
Okay, and Ben, how can TMCs ease your life as a travel buyer?
Oh, well, that's the million-dollar question. But first, I want to quickly put my 2 points to the previous question. I don't think TMCs should invest into compete with the Zooms and WebExes. That's another level. But I think TMCs should work on avoiding travel where it doesn't add a lot of value to the company. And with this, focus on the trips which matter to the company, and then help the travel managers to travel with more quality on these trips. So less trips, but more quality should be the goal. And usually better quality comes also with higher margins for the TMC. So hopefully a win-win. Yeah. And how can TMCs make the life of the travel manager easier? As I said, at the moment, just don't punish us for not giving a lot of volume in the last 15 months. We know we asked for a lot, but didn't pay anything. So just forgive us on this. That's number one. And second of all, help to get the view on technology is nothing we should fight, like OTAs, like GDS, the NDC against GDS. Don't fight these technologies. Look positive at all these changes. That's my 2 asks.
Okay, I had one idea earlier today, because I was actually planning my own next trip, and I haven't been on many trips, but and from the UK they are making it very difficult. But one of the things that I've discovered is that the mandatory tests that you have to take, and this is sort of just an idea to everybody listening in, they are so expensive. In some countries, they give them for free, but in other countries, you have to pay, and you have to pay a private provider. So I would recommend every TMC to immediately strike a deal with test providers and get good deals from the test providers, and maybe some commission for recommending. This is the new big business of 2021 is test, and maybe the TMCs can do that. So final comment, very quick comment, and we need to finish. Are you optimistic for the future of TMCs or not? Ben?
I'm definitely optimistic. As I said, I strongly believe the TMC is involved in so many end-to-end processes. So it's some model which can be a TMC will be always needed in such a complex end-to-end product.
And Suzanne?
I agree. I think there's evolution ahead, but I think the TMC creates a huge support mechanism and aggregation mechanism within this very complicated ecosystem of travel, that individual players cannot play that role without that expertise. But evolution is required.
That's fantastic to hear, and we really appreciate sort of very great insights from true professionals, and the optimism that you're showing here. I think that what we've seen with TMCs buying up companies also showing that there are investors out there that believe that there's not only a future, but there's even money to be made in the TMC world. So let's hope that we won't have to wait too long until we see also revenue flowing. Let me thank the two of you for joining us and for giving us your insights, and let's meet again soon to see that your predictions have come to fruition and turned out to be true. And I hand over to the moderators of the conference. Thanks for this session.